A knit cap, originally of wool, is designed to provide warmth in cold weather. Typically, the knit cap is of simple, tapering constructions, though many variants exist. Historically, the wool knit cap was an extremely common form of headgear for seamen, fishers, hunters and others spending the working day outdoors from the 18th century and forward, and is still commonly used for this purpose in Scandinavia and other cold regions of the world. Being found all over the world where climate demands a warm hat, the knit cap can be found under a multitude of local names. Construction. Most knit caps are tapered at the top. The stretch of the knitting itself hugs the head, keeping the cap secure. They are sometimes topped with a pom-pom or loose tassels. Knit caps may have a folded brim, or none, and may be worn tightly fitting the head or loose on top. A South American tradition from the Andes Mountains is for the cap to have ear flaps, with strings for tying under the chin. A special type of cap called a balaclava folds down over the head with openings for just the face or for the eyes or mouth only. Some modern variants are constructed as a parallel-sided tube, with a drawstring closure at one end. This version can be worn as a neck warmer with the drawstring loose and open, or as a hat with the drawstring pulled tight and closed. History. Balaclava, the pull-down knit cap, was known in the army of the British Empire as an Uhlin cap or a Templar cap. During the Crimean War, handmade pull-down caps were sent over to the British troops to help protect them from the bitter cold weather before or after the Battle of Balaclava. The cap became popularly known as balaclava helmet or just balaclava among the soldiers. Scandinavian top hue. In Scandinavia, caps resembling a typical knit cap with a pom-pom has been in use since the Viking period and quite possibly earlier. The term means top cap and refers to the pom-pom. The Rallange statuette depicting Viking fertility god Frey shows him wearing a pointed cap with pom-pom. Early caps were probably sewn or made with gnarly binding, but were knitted from the 17th century onwards, when knitting became known in Scandinavia. Inspired by the Phrygian cap of the French Revolution, it became largely ubiquitous during the 18th and 19th century. It is still found in many of the Scandinavian folk costumes for men. Canadian toque. The precursor to the modern toque was a small, round, close-fitting hat, brimless with a small brim known as a Monmouth cap. In the 12th and 13th centuries, women wore embroidered toques, made of velvet, satin, or taffeta, on top of the head veils. In the late 16th century, brimless, black velvet toques were popular with men and women. Throughout the 19th century, women wore toques, often small, trimmed with fur, lace, bows, flowers, or leaves. The term toque is French-Canadian. Some etymologists think it probably comes from an Old Spanish word for a type of headdress, specifically a soft, close-fitting cap worn about 500 years ago. The toque is similar to the Phrygian cap, and as such, during the 1837 Patriots' Rebellion, a red toque became a symbol of French-Canadian nationalism. The symbol was revived briefly by the Front de Libération du Québec in the 1960s. It is considered outerwear and is not commonly worn indoors. The word toque is similarly related to the name of the Chefstoke, an alternate spelling from Middle Breton, the language spoken by Breton immigrants at the founding of New France. In modern Breton, it is spelled toque, and it just means hat. In Old Breton, it was spelled toque. The word is also occasionally spelled touque, although the latter is not considered a standard spelling by the Canadian Oxford Dictionary. In some sections of Canada, a toque with a brim on it, commonly worn by snowboarders, is nicknamed a bruque. British bobble hat. A bobble hat or bobble cap is a knit cap that has a yarn, bobble, or pom-pom upon its top. It is similar to the toque watch cap, however, the toque does not have a bobble on its top. Bobble hats were traditionally considered utilitarian cold-weather wear. In the late 20th century, in the United Kingdom they were associated with utilitarian unfashionability with older football supporters, as they had been popular in club colours during the 1960s and 1970s, along with the pin-on rosette and the football scarf. The bobble hat was seen as traditional or old-fashioned British working-class football regalia. In popular culture, knitcaps are common in cold climates, and are worn worldwide in various forms. They have become the common headgear for stereotypical dock workers and sailors in movies and television. Bill Murray wore this type of hat in The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, possibly as a parody of the red toque worn by Jacques Cousteau. Famous media characters to sport a knitcap are the SCTV characters Bob and Doug McKenzie. Michael Nesmith of the Monkees also wore this hat in his television series, as did Jay in the films of the View-esque universe. Robert Clothier's character Relic in the long-running Canadian TV series The Beachcombers, and Hanna-Barbera's character Loopy de Loop wore a knitcap as well. Michael Parks wore one as James Jim Bronson in the popular series. Then came Bronson. Robert Conrad also had worn one in his role of Cora Desbois in the epic TV series Centennial. Bruce Whites's character Mick Belker wore this hat throughout almost every episode of Hill Street Blues. Characters in the animated series South Park, including Eric Cartman and Stan Marsh, usually wear knitcaps. Jane Cobb from the TV series Firefly wore an orange sherpa knitted and sent him by his mother in the episode The Message. The character Compo on the British TV show Last of the Summer Wine is almost always seen wearing a knitcap. The guitarist for the Irish band U2, The Edge, is also known for wearing a knitcap while performing or during interviews. Tom DeLonge, guitarist and vocalist of the pop-punk band Blink-182, is also known to wear a knitcap during live performances. Rob Caggiano, music producer and former guitarist for thrash metal band Anthrax, is often seen wearing a black one. Canadian Daniel Powter also wore a blue knitcap during the music video for Bad Day. Knitcaps are also worn commonly by hip-hop artists. Massow Arbour from Revelations Persona wears one. Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Jonathan Bernier wore a toque over his helmet during the 6th annual National Hockey League Winter Classic on January 1, 2014. One of the more notable wearers of the toque was Jacques Plante, the Hall of Fame goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens ice hockey team throughout the 1950s. During the 2003 Heritage Classic game, another Canadiens goaltender, José Theodore, wore a toque on top of his goalie mask. A 1984 QUE Acute BE Acute COI's film about an enormous snowball fight has the French title La Guerre des Touques. A town in Quebec is known as La Touque, named after a nearby hill that resembles a toque. During the 2000s and 2010s, the bobble hat remains popular among many celebrities, including American rapper Eminem and Dappy from British Cypriot group N-Dubs. Santa Claus is often shown with a knitted cap or a sewn cap, following the typical Scandinavian-style knitted cap with a pom-pom, a trait he has inherited from the Germanic, Scandinavian tradition. The Scandinavian tomt is likewise usually depicted with a red knitted cap. Such a cap is also used as a national symbol in Norway. Other names for a knitcap include sock hat, knit hat, bonnet, sock cap, stocking cap, tossel cap, ski hat, toboggan, burglar beanie, watch cap, woolly hat, snooki, shugan, orcha. In parts of the English-speaking world, this type of knitted hat is traditionally called a beanie, rather than the less popular knitcap. In parts of Canada and the US, the word beanie is used to denote a completely different, less floppy cap that is not knitted, but rather made up of joined panels of felt, twill or other tightly woven cloth. The knickcap is also known in Canadian English, too, a word closely related to the French word toque, originally referring to a traditional headwear and now used for type of chef's hat. A knickcap is commonly referred to as a watch cap by members of the United States military, as it is the headgear worn while standing watch on a ship or guard post. The term snooky cap is also frequently used in the U.S. military. A knickcap with ear flaps is often called a bobble hat, toboggan, or sherpa.